This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by Love Song, screening this January 31st at the Winnipeg Film Group member screening, a film about what happens when a woman washes up on the shores of a troubled relationship. I promise there's lots of blood. Admission is just $6, and you can see dozens of short films made by hundreds of talented Winnipeg filmmakers.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, who will be making a brief appearance on the podcast today.
Yeah, I got to go right away.
And producer
I don't want to be here anyways.
Dan Vadeboncoeur.
I actually had a lot to do. I didn't have much to do. I could have been here a lot earlier. We'd agreed upon the time, and then I'm like, I'm just going to twiddle my thumbs until it's time for me to come over. And then you text me and say, you can come over early if you want. I'm like, oh, okay. So
whoops.
I was doing nothing.
So the interesting thing about being so professional as a podcaster is to make your plans in advance and to stick to them. In this case, it didn't work.
2020 is off to a great start.
2020. Actually, it is off to a great start, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the world's on fire and all that stuff, but creatively, I'm in a really great place.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. How about the rest of you?
Yeah, no, it's good. But now, when you make us look at the big picture...
Yeah, I was feeling good until you mentioned the world being on fire.
It feels selfish to say, like, you're doing so well. Well,
yeah,
Australia is burning down. And
I know, like, it's literal fire and also metaphorical fire, right? Like, democracy is under attack. The environment is in the toilet, and all of humankind is on the verge of war. But I have 2 graphic novels, 2 novel novels, 2 film and animation-related projects, and I'm feeling pretty great.
Yeah. Good.
That's good.
You know, aside from the deep existential angst of a world in turmoil.
These things happen.
You're going to use it, right? You'll use it in a... You told me, Casey, you came in to speak to my students on Friday, and you told them that you were writing Good Boys, and every time you came up with some sort of horrible worldwide event that happened in the story, it happened in real life, and you had to change it. That happened a couple times.
A couple of times, yeah. So I've had to change a few of the outcomes because, you know, it's about kind of the background elements are about a state that is sort of collapsing because of a racist leader putting pressure on different groups, and they, you know, radicalize and then become the threat. And I'm like, I'll make up a parable that couldn't possibly be happening. And then the next day's news cycle is like, well, that's real now. So
that horrible fictional thing you came up with, we did it.
Oh, no. So, yeah, trying to write a story that's set in a possible world but is close enough to the actual world has its perils when you're close to the deadline, for sure. Yeah, for
close
sure.
to the deadline, for sure.
Shout out to my editor, Jen, who is brought the project right to a laser focus and cannot wait to turn in pages to her every week. It's fantastic.
Available for pre-order now.
It is available for pre-order now. You know what else just announced 10 minutes before we started this podcast is Automatic Age is officially announced from the publisher. So my book is out, and the launch date is April 15th. I just found out also at McNally.
Right before Calgary, too.
Yeah, so, you know,
cool.
That's what I mean. Like, the world's on fire, but, you know, I'm kind of on fire, too. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so a couple of things. You don't have a long time here.
I don't, no.
So you're going to set up some big ideas for us to discuss on this, our first 2020 podcast. What are your goals?
Oh, my goals?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
I don't know. I like it because you became uncomfortable when I asked, so now I want it to be
I thought you were going... We'd been talking about going in one direction before the podcast,
we made a little
and now
plan.
you just, like, switched it up.
Dear listener, we did make a plan.
There's like a bit of a flow chart happening over there. Mind map, if you will.
Yeah. But what are your plans?
I don't know. Last year went pretty well. I'd like to kind of do the same thing this year. So like the whole like business model that I operate on and you do to some degree rely on the Comic-Cons. We always have the discussion about like whether or not they're kind of on their way out or they're changing, evolving, like are the crowds going to keep coming? Or are they going to peter out?
Right.
and all that. And so I'm not trying to make any concrete plans. I kind of want to just keep seeing where things are going. So I want to do a lot of it's like kind of like the whole two wolves thing. I want to do conventions.
Dear listener, he's referring to the fact that there's two wolves in all of us, and the one that you feed is the one that wins.
Right. Like I'd like to be in the studio working on some like certain kinds of projects more. But then am I taking away from like the last couple years of good Comic-Con travel that maybe I should be, you know, while the iron's hot, doing as many of those as I can because they won't be around forever. Right. You know, so that whole internal
You're in a
debate.
liminal space. So 2020 isn't like you executing. It's you maybe pivoting into a whole new
I'm staying
world.
nimble. I'm keeping on my toes and I'm keeping my balance and I'm ready to pivot. And
are you saying in the last year or so, have you seen evidence that you think that some of these cons are not going to, like we did see it happen here in Winnipeg. One of those, our big con shut down quickly to be replaced by another big con that's coming in. So do you think that that could happen at other
We're seeing
places?
fatigue. Like the same people go to these shows since their inception. So I mean 7-10 years of a convention, you know, people have kind of seen it and they've bought a silly amount of prints and they're kind of
I relate it to the idea of the old, remember in the 80s monster truck shows?
Oh yeah.
Huge.
They still do those, but they're not as good as they used to be.
Right.
And there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Right? That attitude, I fear, is creeping into Comic-Con land.
But that's because the reason they're not as good as they used to be is because they changed the format of a monster truck show.
Also happening in comic shows.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
But it's not just that one show. It's like, you know, everybody's talking about how, I like the Marvel movies, but I'm kind of getting sick of superhero movies. You know, it's just it's a lot of that. And I don't know if it's just me also kind of needing a bit of a break from that geek culture 24/7, like shoved in your face. But yeah.
A geek culture that we both participate in.
We do, yeah.
Admire, thrive on, add to, create content for, consume the content of. But it's also, you have to take a step sideways and like look at your life and what's all going on. Is it maybe that because of the state of the world, we're looking at this industry of distraction maybe in a different light than we used to?
No, the world's always been
in
one state or
interesting
another.
you bring that up. So this is what I had this conversation with my wife Tara recently, and I was saying, remember what high school was like, and remember how like your loves and your hates and your social situations all hung on a knife's edge, and you just didn't have, you know, there was just all the drama of that side of the life. She's like, oh yeah, it was like all consuming. I said, well, that was also when the Gulf War was going on, when everyone else thought, right, that the Cold War was going to start again, that nuclear Armageddon might rear its head again. And that was all in the news that our parents were talking about, but we weren't really paying attention to.
No.
And the difference is that social media has let us all pay attention now in a way that we never had before. But the world is maybe, potentially, not any worse off than it's always been.
Isn't it more peaceful now that it's been in a very long time? We just have access to all the horrors.
My favorite stat I read recently is that in recorded history, humans have not been at war for only 8% of it.
I heard that as well somewhere. Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
You might have said that on Friday.
I did bring it up at our talk on Friday because it was on my mind. I've been digging into the actual content of that, right? And like under what do they count as history, and is it oral history and all that other stuff. So like with any claim you hear on the internet, you should evaluate mine yourself. Justin is putting his hat on, his scarf on, he's putting his mitts on. He's had a meeting sort of in the works for the last 5 years. He's really going to go and drill down into some deep problems.
So, yeah, I'm going to the dentist, which is
Greg wanted to make some aside, like
something I've been like putting off for a while. I don't mind the dentist, but I mean, nothing's been wrong for a long time. So like if nothing's hurting and I brush my teeth 3 times a day and floss, then I don't need to
what's
give the dentist
amazing
money.
is this has instantly then turned into the metaphor of what we were talking about earlier, right? Nothing's really been wrong, but now you have this slight discomfort in comic book land.
Well,
Maybe there's a cavity forming that will eventually.
Oh, very nice.
Right?
So how do you address that early?
How do you address? You got to address it early. You have
Gotta
to
address that early.
You got to brush and floss.
Yeah. Plus.
I might have cavities. I'm not sure, but I had a filling fallout, which was a very like.
Yeah, that's a cavity. You're done.
No, he's
No,
gonna,
it's a filling was like. It's, yeah.
You know why it comes loose? There's a cavity under there.
God damn it.
Such a jerk.
Yeah.
What I'll say is I was in a similar situation as you. It's because like sometimes this is also something to think about when you guys are doing what you're doing now, which is like, do you have a dental plan or anything?
No,
here?
I don't.
Right,
No.
that's why, right?
Yeah.
If you have like, I'm covered 100% by my employer, so I have no problem going to the dentist. But there was a long time where I wasn't covered and I didn't go. And when I finally did go, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I think you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that when you will you stop? When you do what you're doing, like when your side hustle becomes your main hustle and you're in business for yourself, that's a luxury you don't have necessarily.
Although there are great options with the Blue Cross.
Yeah. We live in Canada,
Yeah.
so dental is not covered for those Americans listening by our regular health care. So we pay for our own dental.
But we don't pay for our regular health care.
But we don't pay for our regular health care.
Right.
So, if you're in America paying $15,000 to $20,000 health care
God. Yeah.
tax, I mean, you guys don't call it a tax, but since you're not taxed on it, we know it's a tax, right? So you just got to save up. You got to put some money aside when you're a freelancer.
I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those. I'm very, very fortunate in that I'm healthy and I've never had any major problems. But as a young person working and seeing how much of my paycheck was going to like a health plan that I wasn't taking advantage of, that bugged the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And so when I finally even started taking advantage of it, like I tried to get my money's worth. It was hard. It was hard to like rack up
true.
that amount of.
You just gotta have kids. That's what you gotta do.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Don't
will
worry.
make
I've
it
been
worth-
using your share. I used your share on my kids when I was a
There you
teacher,
go.
so don't you worry about that.
Okay. On that note, I'm gonna.
You're going to buzz off.
Smalley, got a bad tooth, huh?
Oh, I thought this was the men's room.
I was invited to On Screen Manitoba's event that they're doing, which is called All Access, which is a whole bunch of movie, TV producers from all across Canada that come to Winnipeg, and they set up this event for 300 sort of people of influence, if you will, to network and do stuff. And they asked me to come and speak on their podcast.
Wow. Okay.
Because Super Pulp Science broke some sort of like statistical record. So of the like 780,000 podcasts that are produced, the number of them that make more than 25 episodes is a really small
Yeah. No, I knew
percentage,
that. I knew
apparently.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we passed our 100th episode, that gave them cause to reach out and ask for us to come and talk about sort of ask me why we bother, what it's for, how do you monetize your podcast, and like all of these big business industry related things. And I'm going to take great delight in discussing the real reasons why we continue with the podcast, which is the dear listener, the people who show up at the cons, at the book signings, at the events, and they want to have a conversation that skips past the small talk to something that we talked about on the show, something that's going on in their life that's related. And it just, that icebreaker that it's become for the people who are interested in making things. And you're the one that makes this all happen. So
Oh, well, say hi for me. No, it is interesting that lots of podcasts don't make it past 25 episodes. It's so common. I think the stat is more along the lines of 500,000 active podcasts. So, those are ones who are still updated on a regular basis. But to me, I mean, the secret to continuing to podcast is to do it for yourself. It's great to do it for the listener, right? And the listeners are awesome and love getting feedback, but you have to enjoy doing it. You absolutely have to enjoy doing it. I see this as a hobby. It's not something I do for money necessarily, although I'm sure it will lead me to that eventually. About a year ago, I did a similar presentation at a Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce. Do you remember that? And
yes.
with Terry O'Reilly from Under the Influence.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. So that was about how businesses can start their own podcast. And I didn't really get into the monetization part of it necessarily, but because it is like you have to really draw a huge audience to make a decent amount of money on it.
Right.
But
to make the okay. So for the dear listener who's out there that's ever showed up at our show and then bought something, number one, you have our eternal gratitude for caring enough to come and do that. But number two, that's sort of for us the long tail of that comment. That if there is a listener that feels like they got enough from it to make an actual connection with us, a lot of what we do is in our work, and so that natural extension happens without us having to make a plea for you to buy things from us or somebody else every time.
Yeah. But the podcast allows them to connect with you as well and to get to know you and that kind of stuff. And that's what it would offer to any business, really. Essentially a chance for their customers to get to know them or their potential customers to get to know them. So that's kind of the idea of what you want to say tomorrow.
Well, and one of the things that they were talking about is the number of, it came up in this sort of pre-interview that we did, the number of podcasts that have been approached by production companies to become television series, to become series, to become, to get into the pitch room. And for those of you who are, a little bit flabbergasted, it wouldn't be a podcast like this one that gets approached to become a television show. It's podcasts. Most of the ones like that are the true crime podcasts, or the narrative-related podcasts.
Dirty John is one that became a series starring Eric Bana, the Hulk, Bruce Banner himself. And I don't remember what the other one was.
Lore,
that's true. Yeah, and they're the narrative. It's not the true crime is true, but the lore I believe is fictional. Is it a fictional one or semi-fictional or something like that?
Lore looks at urban legends and then tells the story of their origin.
So it is ones with more of a through line. Now, this form of podcast does have a visual aspect. There are many of them that record theirs on camera and put it up on YouTube, and people do watch podcasts in that way, but it's not necessarily the same as going to series for Netflix or something like that, right? There has to be a good narrative through line. I wouldn't mind trying out doing a more kind of fictional produced podcast like that at some point. I had a similar assignment I had my students do a number of years ago. We just called it the audio drama assignment because it was before podcasts were... Podcasting brought back the audio drama, and I couldn't be more happier.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I love some of these newer ones. There was a one point, 10 or 15 years ago, where CBC was the only place you could get it in Canada as far as an audio drama goes. I don't know if you ever heard Afghanida. Do you remember that one? It was about soldiers overseas.
I did hear some of those episodes. They were great.
Really good. But nobody else was doing it, and now everybody's doing it because it's so popular in podcast form.
Yeah, it was This American Life is what got me into podcasts.
Yeah.
A friend of mine.
That was for a lot of people. And that's a standard radio show that is popular in podcast form, but it's the style. That's where they get Serial and all those other that's where the true crime podcast was born.
Serial was so good.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this event, all access event, is that producers and showrunners and directors and talent people, whatever, they organize these one-on-one meetings at this event. And all I could think is, while I'm looking at how they've arranged their event, this is a type of format that I would love to see make a jump over into the regular convention scene.
Yeah, it is in some conventions, but it's not. It's few and far between.
Small, yeah.
It is few and far between, and oftentimes it's a kind of a complimentary event where it happens at another venue on the same weekend. So oftentimes at San Diego, a lot of the nerdy kind of geeky podcasts, like The Adventure Zone is one where these guys play D&D on their podcast, and they do it in a theater in San Diego on the Friday night or something like that. So you would go to the con all day, and then you would go to the show at night. But at last couple of celebrations, the Star Wars conventions, they've had a special podcast stage, and they've had podcasters go up there and do their thing and record live at Celebration, which is a big thrill, I would imagine. As somebody who hosts a Star Wars podcast, that would be a lot of fun, I think.
Have you thought about that for FanQuest?
We have. At one point, we were going to bring in a guy named Steele Saunders, who does a podcast called Steel Wars. He's a very funny guy. He's Australian, but he lives in LA now, and he's a huge Star Wars fan, and he loves getting interviews with Star Wars people, legit Star Wars people. And when the year we brought Pablo in, he wanted to come and interview Pablo because he didn't think he was going to be able to get him any other way. And I said, well, I mean, we could try and work that out. We didn't have the budget to bring him in. But yeah, we have talked about doing that, a live podcast. The thing is, you want it to be, it's got to be a certain size event. You want it to be a full room. You don't want to be sitting there doing a live podcast for like a handful of people, right? So we have to make sure that we can fill that room up with people who really want to see it. And the problem with podcasts is that a lot of people aren't going to necessarily show up for a podcast they've never heard of before.
Right.
So I think it's got to
So
be.
you have to bring the guest.
Well, you have to bring a well-known person in to do it.
Well, you have an appointment, maybe?
No, but you were very highly recommended to me by one of your patients, Mrs. S. Shiva. I do a lot of undertaking for her relatives.
The other thing I'd like to see at more shows is this meet and greet vibe that they have. It's not really meet and greet. It's by appointment, but San Diego does it a little bit. It's not really accessible to too many people, and maybe that's by design. But this is the idea that you would have, X number of publishers, X number of producers, X number of people who have connections and the capacity to make something beyond the page, meet with people and take pitches and give feedback in these 15-minute, 20-minute slots. And I know that's grueling for the people that you get to do that vetting, but that's the kind of thing where I could see a shift in how Comic-Cons approach their audience would be to recognize that a good number of people who are coming to shows are doing it to try and figure out how to get into that industry, because there's not much barrier physically, there's not much barrier between you and the people who are making those things.
Yeah, we've tried to do that, not in that format necessarily, but that's been a big part of FanQuest as far as bringing in people we can learn from. We did the YouTuber panel last year, and that was a huge success. Like, as far as people really enjoyed it, we brought 2 local YouTubers. So these are guys who live in Winnipeg, who have successful YouTube channels, and that's how they make their living by posting on YouTube. And you don't hear a lot about that in the local media. Like, they don't, and these guys don't even can't even see on their YouTube channel that they're from here. Right? It doesn't say anything. I just kind of a friend of a friend knew somebody, and we got them that way. But and people loved it. They're like, okay, well, this is an actual possibility. My kids all want to be YouTubers right now. I don't know about yours, but mine are like,
yeah, it comes up. Yeah, it definitely comes up.
They want to explore that as a career option.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, let's do it for fun and then see where we can go from there. But
okay, so the conversation I have with my own kids about it is, okay, so this is me. This is the soapbox of a former educator now. So I just want to qualify these statements, right? That I think actually when kids see the YouTubers and say, I want to do that as a job, what's underneath it is actually, I actually want to do a job that allows me to express actual rigor related to my interest, rather than just do what you tell me for money.
Right. Okay.
Right. I think that's what they don't quite understand, why they like it as much as they do, and why they see it as this holy grail job right now. The way that my father's generation saw cowboys and astronauts, right? Like people who were exploring some new frontier and were doing it for their own reasons, right? Maybe we'll leave the cowboy reasons out of it, like appropriating other people's land.
No, that's true.
Having gunfights. But what's interesting to me about this, the thread of our conversation, right back to the cavity, is that it's this nagging doubt that you can get that maybe there's more to it, and that little doubt will grow until, right, it stops you from doing the things you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. One of the things Justin and I were going to talk about before he ran off to the dentist is the idea that this year, one of the things that both he and I have been strictly adhering to is the idea of a day rate.
Okay. You
Yeah.
mentioned that to my students. Yeah.
Right? And that the day rate has allowed us to manage our time, our expectations, and our client expectations in a way that any kind of hourly project-based billing simply does not.
So you will not take jobs that will take you less than a day to do.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they take a whole day, even if they take less than a day.
Okay.
Right? And so if you take jobs that take less than a day to do, you end up piling up all this extra administration work that you're not being paid for while you bill, invoice, send the emails, get the feedback, do the revisions. It's going to take you a whole day anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So bill the day. Don't bill
Okay.
right, some hourly portion. And even if you're just starting out and what you want to do is bill a super reasonable, like almost giving it away price, when you bill the day, you're dealing a one-to-one, right? I'm busy on your thing today. It also builds in this time where the client doesn't bother you, because every time they interrupt you is time
They're taken away from
me to do the task, right?
Yep.
So they'll save those. I find they tend to save those revisions and follow-ups until you send them work, rather than a number of interruptions along the way. They're like, hey, I thought of this. Hey, I thought of this. Hey, I thought of this. They realize that since you build the day, you're going to say, oh, well, that was an interruption in my day. It's going to take me longer now.
That's going to take me 2 days.
Right? 2 days or a day and a half or whatever,
Oh, wait, you can bill a half day? Half a day rate?
I don't usually.
Okay.
Right? I don't usually. I'll round it up.
Right. That's right. So Han Solo did.
Right? So don't. Yeah, Han Solo did. Justin is working on a board game project. He's billing by the day. We brainstorm out what the actual length of time it will take to do a task will be. We go through our previous illustration stuff. We work on comps. Like we do, it's not just like this flimsy, whimsical way of deciding to build a day, but you're totaling the hours and then kind of rounding off, assuming that there's an hour or so of administrative stuff added on to every 5 or so 6 hours that you do.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think a lot of people consider the administrative stuff as part of the freelance landscape. A lot of the time they say, okay, we're going to bill. I get what you're saying there. People think in terms of hourly pay, right? We've grown up with this. We've always been paid by the hour until you get to a point where you're paid a salary. In that case, throw your hourly rate out the window because you're going to work way more hours. As somebody who works on salary at the college and puts in way more than 40 hours a week, that just kind of goes out the window. That's just an excuse to work people more. But yeah, like when you are doing a freelance job, you're writing, like for me, I've been doing some writing freelance work, and it's I spent an hour writing this blog post, then I'm spending another hour going back and forth by email and doing revisions, and also invoicing and all the other stuff that you do.
So how do you track or manage that stuff?
Well, I don't do it very well. And honestly, the stuff, and I could do a day, like when you're thinking about it, I could do a day rate. I could like pick a day and just do it all in one day. But I haven't been doing that because I've just been kind of doing it as I have time, basically.
So I reached out to a freelance writer to create what will probably become a newsletter content. Like it's essentially like writing a blog, but how we're going to distribute it is through a newsletter of like dedicated, interested folks. And same kind of thing. We looked at how he does his updates and his blog posts and how long does that take? How many could you do in a day? How many could you do well in a day? And then, figure out his billable time in those same blocks. It actually made the expectations, like the conversation around quality versus quantity also comes up.
That is similar to the thing I have. Actually, I get paid per post with this current gig I have. So, and there is no set schedule. I'm free to kind of write as things come to me. So it is not like a super, like I don't have to get it done by a certain time or whatever. I'm very flexible in that regard because I have a full-time job and I have a lot of other stuff on the go, and I don't always have time to bang out a blog post. But what that allows me is time to think about what I want to write a lot of the time, and something that I'm trying to teach my students when it comes to creative ideas and thinking about the actual words you want to write down. I try to formulate it in my mind a little bit, or at least put together an outline in my mind before I do any typing, just to make sure I've got a good sense of what I want to write, right? That helps me.
Well, goodbye, Dr. Farr. You may have been a crummy dentist, but you were a nice fella.
Lately, what I've been finding, because I have really too many projects on the go right now.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that.
Right? I've been trying to build in an actual 40 minutes, from a half hour to an hour, but usually 40 minutes is what I've been able to carve out reasonably, where I actually just think.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a screen on. I don't have an email open. I don't have a sketchbook with me. I don't have a book with me. I don't have, like it borders almost on meditation, except that I'm not trying to have no
Where
mind.
do you do that?
Just wherever I am. So
Okay.
sometimes here at the studio, like if, there are plenty of times when it's just me here, alone, with my thoughts.
Okay.
Right? And I'll say, okay, this is the time I have to do that. And I'm trying to do it as a daily practice to build in at least a half an hour where your mind has an ability to be a little bit fallow, like just to turn the soil, turn the earth, and let it be. I can't speak to any actual results, except that I feel much calmer afterwards.
Well, that's good. That's a result.
Yeah. So if for no other reason than when I have too much stuff going on and I feel totally overwhelmed, taking a half hour to just actually think. And so you're just, there's the people who are into the concept of pre-visualization before a task. Essentially, that's what I'm doing. I'm pre-visualizing a bunch of different ways that things could have an outcome, but I don't worry about whether or not that's a good idea. I better write it down.
Right.
And I lose a lot of quote unquote good ideas. Like I know, like I had an idea when I was just doing that little thinking session, right? Maybe I'll use that. But I just have to remind myself that it's actually, I had that thought, so it's in there somewhere and it's going to come out in the work eventually.
You'll get it.
And to just kind of try something that I haven't done before. The reason I bring this up is it's, everyone makes their New Year's resolutions and like tries to do something new. In 2020, I told myself I would make more time to just think.
When I do that at my son's hockey practice.
Oh yeah, because you can be no mind.
Because he doesn't want, like, obviously if I'm on my phone, I'm going to look like a crappy dad who doesn't care about. Yeah, so he wants me to watch him, and I am watching him. But watching a practice is boring. It's not as exciting as watching a hockey game. So I'm watching him, but I'm also thinking about whatever, and that's a good 45-minute practice that I get to just think about stuff and what I'm working on, an assignment I might want to do.
I guarantee you, if I put on hockey, I would immediately think of something else. That's true.
That's not the case for me. I do enjoy watching hockey, and I love our local hockey team. But certainly practices are not fun for me. And then similarly, if I'm driving, any time where my mind is not active in a task, when I'm cleaning around the house or showering or whatever, anytime like you let your mind wander, that's thinking time for me. So I try to build that into whatever I do, and that it works pretty well. It's not a great idea to let your mind wander too much while you're driving, but it does. Sometimes you're stuck in traffic, right? Sometimes you're just stuck and you can't move and you got to think about stuff. Yeah. So that's what I like to do.
So true. My transit times, I usually have a book on tape or some.
Yeah, I've done. Well, that's the thing. If I'm on public transportation, I will tend to listen to a podcast or something. I don't know why that is, but if I'm in my car by myself, I'll use that time to think. Sometimes I just turn off the radio and I just sit in silence in my vehicle.
In the car.
Yeah.
It's your thought chamber.
It is, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and I swear at people as they drive by because I feel safe in my thought chamber. You ever do that?
I try. It's funny because there are places that bring out the rage in me, but the road is not one of them.
Oh, it is for me, for sure.
Shout out to my wife, Tara, though, who the rage bubbles within her when she's driving. For sure, to the point that my kids pointed out.
When I was, one of my children was very small, just learning to speak. After I don't remember what I said or anything like that, but all of a sudden a little voice from the back pipes up and says, "Daddy, tell all the other cars fuck." And I'm like, I guess I do. So Anyway,
for me it is the bureaucracy of a telephone tree.
Oh yes, yeah.
That
for this option, press 1.
It's when there's a person.
Okay.
So, like, if it's a robot, I don't begrudge it. It's a programmer didn't do a great job, and now you're in a circle loop, and you end up pound 3ing like 7 times. That's just poor design. But when somebody is clearly handing me off to another person simply because they don't want to deal with whatever my issue is, and it seems like the entire event is orchestrated to just exhaust you from having to tell the same story. Hang up.
Yeah,
but I won't hang up, and that's where I am irrational. Like, that's where my wife would be like, "Uh-oh, kids, let's go to your rooms. Dad's on the phone with the bank." Right?
No.
Let's shield you all from this. And it is one of these just incompetent bureaucracy as a design feature to prevent action in a customer. Once I see that that's true, like once I hear this, because they all have those freaking scripts.
Yeah.
And they turn the script page.
You hear the
and you
rustle
hear
of the paper?
them, every now and then I can hear them rustle, and then they repeat a phrase that the previous two down the line, and I know I'm just trapped in that script, bumped along. Ugh.
That'll teach you to keep your bill up to date, you deadbeat.
Something really interesting is happening. Well, it's interesting to me. You may remember many moons ago us talking on our episode called The Film is in Charge about making a movie.
Episode 34.
With Michael Sanders of Electric Monk Media. We had gone out and shot this little independent horror short film called Love Song, which I wrote with Mike, and then he directed, and we pulled in a lot of resources, and we made something that we thought was pretty special. We shot something where the content we knew was good, but then in putting it together, we realized that there had been some fundamental errors in our judgments as filmmakers, as story writers, and as content creators that we had missed out on. And to make a long story short, many, many edits later, the film is finished. The final vision exists, and it's going to be presented at the Winnipeg Dreamers annual Winnipeg Film Group member screening with a whole host of other really great short films. Actually, that's a lie. I don't know if any of them are any good. Right? I don't know if mine's any good either.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
What I'm going to say is that there's a whole bunch of other people whose films are there that I'm looking forward to seeing for the first time while they screen our movie also.
Yes.
And that is the most exciting thing to me, is that when I look at this list, let's see, part 2 featuring Hot Plastic Suits, Nadia's Song, Métis Femme Bodies, Cruise Night, Green Run, Lens Flare, The Other Side, Love Song, and a sneak preview of new work by Lasha Mochan and Dylan Bailey. I don't know any of those people.
I'm sure they're awesome.
Well, this is my point, is that what I'm excited about is that we made this little thing in our own little...
Part of the 48-hour film festival,
yeah,
right? You had 48 hours to shoot a film. You did that.
And we made our own little monster movie. And now we're going to go and see all these other people's visions and see part of a much larger community that, other people who were involved in our project, much more involved in the film community here in Winnipeg than I am, will know a lot of them and have worked with them many times and all of that. But for me, I've been in this space where I keep getting re-energized by all these pockets of creativity that usually are very siloed. For example, when we did Red Earth, I got to embed with a theater company for a couple of years, basically, and produce a experimental play. We got to make this little experimental film. We get doing all this stuff, which shows you all these different people, all these different, shines a spotlight into the corners of your own city for all of these people who are doing this crazy conceptual exploration. Us doing this podcast, I've learned more about the podcast community and that it exists and it thrives here in Winnipeg than I ever would have known simply by, doing it.
Right.
It can be a little addictive that you want to jump genres all the time.
Yeah.
Go
There's a lot of cool stuff happening out there. Yeah. Absolutely.
What's the next new thing that I get to go see? How can I go see it? How can I be a part of it? But for me, because it's words and pictures is the thing that I do, I kind of can take that all over.
Yeah. I'll just add that all the back episodes are now up on the new podcast feed. So if you want to go listen to episode 34, The Film is in Charge, where you guys talk about more specifically that process. I believe you recorded it before you shot it. We recorded the weekend before.
And then we talked about it after also.
Yeah. So probably in the next episode. But I remember I think how we do a little promo at the beginning?
Yeah.
I think this one says, this episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by the movie we're about to shoot this weekend, which is end up being Love Song. So there you go. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And it was interesting for me when I was re-uploading all these, because we switched, just for those who don't know, we switched podcast providers as far as the host for the files. We were using SoundCloud before. Now we've switched to Anchor, which is a free service and offers us a lot more benefits.
As with all services, I believe it's free for now.
Well, see, yeah, come on, we'll see how that goes. But essentially, Anchor wants to be the YouTube of podcasting, where they don't want to ever charge people. They want to make money through the advertising. But there are no advertisements other than the ones we put into the episodes. But yeah, as I was going through, I got to revisit all these episodes, all the 100 episodes that we've done, and it was cool because I got there was a lot of mention throughout the whole Red Earth project. You got to kind of hear that project evolve, with all the different mentions of Red Earth up until the performance of the play, and then we talked about it afterwards after I saw it and that kind of stuff, and it goes forward with all the other projects. Gear and Sea was also talked about quite a bit. I'm sure it'll be the same for Dragon Nanny once that kind of gets going. And
oh man, we have a 3D printed prototype. I should probably wait till Justin. We have a 3D printed prototype of a Dragon Nanny toy that we're working on right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Incredible.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so cool. Sorry.
You look like you want to go find it right now.
Oh, I do. It's here. It's in this room. But no, I won't because you can't see it anyway, dear listener. But I will say that the shout out to Will Little here, who was the 3D conceptual designer on Cassie and Tonk when we were working on that. He is a game designer and works in the video game industry and is a proud new owner of a 3D printer and a lifetime developer of skills in 3D modeling. And so harnessing those two things has been incredible. He's also working on some tripod designs for World War Weird for me that we're going to try and have some prototypes of. So
some actual pieces, game pieces.
So in the interest of maintaining this through line of, you heard it a little at a time here first. This is some of the stuff that
what occurred to me as I was re-uploading all these episodes is that this is not only it's a good podcast for people to get advice and find out what it's like to work and do the kind of work you guys do, but it's also a great archive of your life, of your professional life, because you talk about everything on the podcast. You guys are all
so if I disappear, you'll be able to untangle the
That's
threads.
right. Well, you know what we can do? We can make a TV series about it. We'll make a TV series about your life. We have all the information right there on the podcast. That's all you need.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that interesting.
I hope it's interesting because people are listening to this.
It's true. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
One of the things that somebody asked me recently was, because I was showing them the designs for the role-playing game, and they were saying, do you ever just have an idea and just not do it? Like maybe decide I'm doing enough things? And I said, I was being facetious, but I was like, well, we'll be dead soon.
That's what you told, that's what you told all my students.
Right? So you should do stuff because you'll be dead soon. But the thing is, underneath it for me, why wouldn't you? Right? You have a long list of have-tos in your life. So do I, dear listener. Those of you who are like, oh, I wish I had all the freedom to just do whatever. I still got to do the dishes and take out the garbage and clean up after my family and manage the finances and, keep the lights on and do all the things that everybody else has to do. What I try not to do is spend the rest of that time binge watching television. Right.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that a little bit. Right? I mean, I've been trying to change it up a bit. I've been playing a lot of the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order game, but I do tend to veg out a little bit too much, I think. So that's my issue.
And which I think is understandable. There is any longtime listeners of the podcast know my love and admiration for the writing of William Gibson, but in one of his novels, he talks about the idea that there was a time when media culture was a piece of the world rather than comprising the whole world. And the more I think about that, the more I realize that's why you need to unplug.
Yeah.
It's because there is no avenue. The world isn't going to give you a break, right? That attention warfare is 24/7. And the only person that can give you half an hour, 40 minutes to think is you. You have to empower yourself.
In my son's hockey practice.
Right? Wherever that is. Right? Wherever that is. David Alexander Robertson, he tweets often when he's at his son's hockey practice. He gets, I don't know who it is that's taking the photo, but it's usually a photo of him with headphones in, with his laptop out, doing a writing sprint.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
And he is just in a crowd of people who are, it's like all the parents, all that stuff. But here's a guy who has deadlines, far more deadlines than I do, right? Far more kids than I've got, a far bigger life to manage, and he's still carving out that time. Every time I think, oh man, how am I going to make time to do this? I think of that picture of him surrounded by all these people with his headphones in and just meeting that deadline, right? Just taking a half an hour, taking 40 minutes, because that's the only 40 minutes he's got. So yeah. So I think that this has been Super Pulp Science, our first 2020 episode where we wax poetically about a number of different topics, where we are one man down before the episode is even over. Dear listener, if you have ever sat in a dentist chair, I ask you now to send your love and support to Chasing Artwork Justin Curry, who is probably having his face drilled open.
He's totally not.
Right now. And when he listens to this episode again, he'll feel the warm glow. That just might be bleeding, actually, the warmth he feels. But do we have to put a trigger warning for dental stuff on this episode? I encourage you, in the year 2020, to remember that while the world is, could use a little of our help, it can also use a few of our ideas. So you should join the fight and make comments.